The research of the suppliers is not the main task. It's the whole communication. It's the whole exercise of building one's trust. Again, selling, not buying in the beginning, building a cooperation, getting them to answer, negotiating the prices and the changes. AI will definitely help building up a list. But a list itself on potential producers is useless if you don't know if they can do it, what their prices are, how flexible they are, and so on.
Hey, this is Brent from AMZ Pathfinder, and this is Beyond PPC. This is a show where we bring on expert guests that know about tons of other topics besides just advertising, which is what you always hear us talking about. And today we have Sebastian Herz, who is here to talk about all things sourcing, manufacturing, and I guess generally speaking, supply chain. So Sebastian is the co-founder and the only male team member, fun fact, of all female Signify global product sourcing. He has a background in electrical engineering, industrial automation, and he's resided in Asia for 6 years, has an Amazon business since 2014. And a bit of trivia, Sebastian, I love that you guys included this in here. Along with his wife, Yulia, who I also know, who's wonderful, he embarked on an extraordinary journey traversing overland from Singapore to Germany on a single motorcycle, covering 38,000 kilometers in 242 days, all while raising funds for children in need. So, Sebastian, welcome to the show.
It's lovely, Brent. Thank you so much for having us. And I mean, pleasure, of course, is mine, knowing you now for, I feel like a couple of years by now. It's starting to be, right? We see each other in all those shows. And on the other hand, I mean, it is amazing that, kudos to you, that you help your clients and your listeners, not only with your own stuff, but going beyond that and saying, it's like, if you have PPC, well, you still didn't win anything if you don't master the rest.
Right.
We do the same in sourcing. When you have a product in your hand, you have nothing won. You didn't sell a single unit yet. So therefore, fantastic that you focus on your clients, on your listeners, to also learn about other stuff.
The reality is we're downstream of so many things. So one of the things that we're downstream of is the sourcing aspect. If someone can't find a product that has a good margin and they have a reliable supplier and they're able to get enough of it, then anything and everything we do doesn't really make much of a difference, does it? So those components have to be in place before we can, spend a single dollar, pound, euro, whatever on advertising.
Yep. I mean, there's a phrase to it, right? The real money is made in purchasing, not in sales. I would adjust that phrase. I mean, of course you make money in sales. So I would say the real money is made in purchasing, not only in sales. But imagine you're selling the same amount of units, but you purchase it for cheaper, you immediately have a profit increase. And that's what most of our clients, of course, do. The ones who are set up and sell, let's say, 10,000 units, and they continue selling the same amount of 10,000 units, but they have more money available once, because saving money, it's direct profit. But on the other hand, this is a hint, you have enough capital then to spend on AMZ Pathfinder to help, making then, for example, a better sale. So it's like a spiral upwards.
Yeah, a positive feedback loop, if you will. Yeah,
a positive feedback loop. That's a great.
Okay, I've actually never heard that expression before, Sebastian. So you're already teaching me stuff. I never heard that before. So let's get started on some of these questions. We're gonna bounce around. We got a ton here actually that we dreamt up. So first one, this is one that was on my mind, right? So we always hear about clients talk about sourcing from China. How feasible is it to find products from other places that are the same quality that are not from China, whether it be for geopolitical risk or, I don't know, whatever reason a company might not want to source from China? Is it really possible these days to find other products, other places?
That's a really great question, especially because of like the last years, what happens, like you say, geopolitical reasons, anti-dumping tariffs, time of shipping, pirates right now for Europe, for example, Suez Canal, everything blocked, needing to go through the Cape of Hope and all those extent, but whatever the different reasons are. To make this short and to put it maybe like in percentage statements, it's about like 2 years ago, we did, let's say, 90% sourcing in China, 10% outside of China. Now it's about 40% inside China, and the rest of the world. So we do sourcing, of course, in other Asian countries, as well as European countries, Africa, Middle, North, South America. So it is quite feasible, obviously, to get products. Question that we always need to ask is like, what's the price and how difficult is it for the producers then to produce it? Chinese are, believe me, they are busy SBEs, very detailed. They're coming back and offering products to you and give you quotations. And when it comes to production, of course, I mean, it's fast, fast, fast. They stick to what they do. There's maybe a reason why, I would say the old white Western men wonders like, why did China overtake us? Well, because you know what? They answer, they give quotations, they give you, they deliver, they stick to contracts, especially if they're hint, penalties inside your contracts. China has become a working bench of the world, and for maybe a reason that they are hungry. Yet on the other hand, I usually say, besides this here, for example, heavy electronics, smartphones, and maybe small pieces, let's say like small plastic pieces, like one of my products as well as a camera cover, that are being spit out in 10,000s of units per hour out of plastic injection molding. Besides those two things, mostly you can find any product outside of China for still reasonable prices.
Okay, that's really helpful because actually one of the exceptions I think of is, the same people that criticize China, well, they all have iPhones and high-end Android phones. Guess where those come from? Those are all coming from China. I mean, we
Right.
see companies like Apple trying to push into India, right? But they're still encountering problems there that are related to infrastructure, as I understand, that they just wouldn't find in China. And, China has been a partner for Apple for decades. There's a reason for that.
Correct.
But that's good to hear that places even that are not even on my radar, honestly, like Central South America are up and comers, and maybe we'll get more into that. So that's a good start. Now, the next thing I want to ask about, kind of related to this. So what questions are companies frequently not asking their suppliers that they really should? So there's a basic set of questions that they do ask them, but what are the biggest ones you see companies missing so they do not ask their sourcing agent or the person that's their contact at the supplier that they really should be asking them?
Right. Maybe another thought that's in my head about the previous question regarding China and its quality. I mean, we got to be careful of what we're watching, what we're consuming, and who is behind, of course, the messages that they're spreading, especially when it's media companies. I usually say, as long as a media company is a profit-oriented business,
Mhm.
then, I mean, they will print and put in there whatever the clients want to read. And if, don't get me wrong, but the common mob wants to read that China is bad, of course, they put everything about China. And also here in Germany, we have, China quality is like, all it's bad, it's all crap.
Right.
No, China creates the best quality possible, of course, if you're willing to pay. I mean, look at all the Mercedes engines, I think 350 upwards, they're made in China. All the Audi car, A4L, A6L, A8L, all produced in China. BMW interior electronics design and entertainment systems created in China. How do I know that? We used to live in China ourselves. I was there for ABB, world market leader in industrial automation, 20,000 employees in China. And I came over there for the oil and gas and chemical business to build bridges along between the world. You get the best quality. And those people were living in my compound. They were like neighbors of ourselves or of us. And I looked into them and seen the factories and was like, wow, that's amazing. But now the questions that usually suppliers should, of course, ask. I mean, one simple thing is, okay, that actually comes to how many suppliers are you talking to? Most of the when you go into coachings, what do you learn? You learn like, hey, get 2, 3, 4 quotations and decide for one. And it's like, that's sourcing for beginners. This is maybe good for the first product when you want to get your feet wet and see if that e-commerce business works for you. But if you take it serious about one product, I mean, just as a short summary, we target to find about 30 to 60 potential producers in order to get as many quotations as possible in order to have them and start negotiating with them. And this is where, the real money is made in purchasing. It's detail, it's persistence, it's getting more and more quotations. So one of the things they should ask is maybe not the same supplier, but ask more of the suppliers. Now, one of the things you should ask your one supplier that you have is like, so what are the MOQs for higher numbers? Don't only go for the FOQ, like the first order quantity, but go for the MOQ, the minimum order quantity that they A have, or B, also ask them, I always say, with positive but realistic outlook to the future. In 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, how many units will you create? How many units would you purchase from them? What would be their prices? Now, maybe another small thing, just as a general hint, don't necessarily talk about MOQs. Why? Because when you go to a company, a producer, and say, this is what is your MOQ? It shows that you're a beginner. But it's like, you don't have the self-confidence to say, yeah, I'm going to hit your MOQ, not a problem. You just go in and actually ask for those numbers. I mean, and imagine you're a producer and somebody comes, oh, what's your MOQ? That shows to me as a producer, it's like, all right, so he wants to purchase the minimum. So he's probably in the beginning. He's like, man, okay, maybe not even so interesting. come there self-confidently and say, hey, I want 250 units in the first order, 3, 6, 12 months, positive but realistic, is to look for whatever, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 units. Another question, of course, also always to ask your suppliers now is after time of ordering, I mean, go in and, don't necessarily accept price increases. No, instead you go in and you start asking, hey, what about, let's look into the prices that we have currently. What is possible to get in as a reduction? By the way, I have quite a few other offers as well. Only do this when you have the real research, of course, done. Get price reductions. Give you an example. One of our Australian clients, he's selling textile products. He used to place $180,000 every 2 months with a supplier. Now we took him to China. We also do guided factory tours. We do guided Canton Fair trade shows. So we are there running around with the clients or doing negotiations and factory visits. And we found other producers of the same product, even at the Canton Fair. And we was like, hey, hold on, those are different prices. All right. And we started digging deeper because most of the good producers you don't find on trade shows because trade shows are expensive. And some small family businesses who are just starting out may not be able to afford those. So you start digging and find more, and we found more and more suppliers. And in the end, he doesn't spend now 180,000, but 103,000 every 2 months. $77,000 savings every 2 months. Now here comes the, how do you call it in English? Like the cherry on top?
The cherry on top, yeah.
Cherry on top is he's staying with the same supplier, same product, same quality. Just because we had alternative producers showing, it's like, look, this is the market price. You want to keep those tens of thousands of units that are being ordered all the time?
Right.
Or do you want to lose it to a competitor? They went in and let me calculate, what is this? 103 out of 180, 57%. That's 43% savings. That's 43% probably product. You could buy more or whatever. That's insane.
Sure.
Or
Just
you
invest
take
in
that
other
money,
marketing channels or do whatever, really, right?
there you go. And you have more profit if without selling a single unit more. Or now you do the, what was it? The positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Put it into, but again, only into advertising that works.
I think this way that some people that I've talked to over the years in e-commerce think about their relationship with their supplier is it's kind of adversarial, but that's not the right way to look at it, right? You're saying, hey, I've gone out and I've done my research. I've looked at other offers out there. I've gotten samples. I've talked to them. This is the market pricing that I've found. Could you guys offer that same pricing? And they might say, yeah, sure. But understand that upstream our raw materials suppliers or this kind of labor makes us, elevate to this cost. We would have to make a change in the product quality in order to get to that level. Maybe that's why the company you're talking to is charging this cheap, right? There's like a dialogue back and forth, right? And I think that some people come to it with this thing, but they're like, I'm gonna rock up there and I'm gonna make demands of this company. I'm gonna tell them, I got this price over here. Well, the reality of it's a bit more complicated, and this is all my very newbie understanding of this. So you're shedding a lot of light on this for me, Sebastian. In fact, I think that when I asked you that question, I didn't even know the right question to ask because the answer turns out, get quotes from 30, 60 suppliers. It's not, how do you talk to your one supplier? It's no, you need to really diversify and play the whole field, right? But finding those is the difficult part, isn't it?
If you, for sure, finding them, this is actually not really so difficult. We're using like 55, 56, 57 different platforms like Alibaba to find manufacturers, and we don't have them on there. Google, Baidu, Yandex, local search, local calling, asking other people to find us. So it's tedious work that needs to be done. Can be done by anybody. You just need persistence and patience. When it comes to when you go back to the suppliers now and you're asking questions with them, one of the things you please must understand in the very beginning, you're not buying, you're selling an idea. You're trying to convince those producers to please take attention, to please talk with you, and to please consider whether they will produce for you. So you're selling an idea that they should work together with you. Why? Well, because to be open, honest, and blunt, they don't need you. The company exists also without you. They can decide if they onboard you as a new client, if you're two small potatoes, if you're a charismatic person, if they see the potential in the future. And that's why I always give them the positive but realistic future outlook. And maybe some other questions also to ask the producers, like, of course, adjustments of the product, working in some other additional USPs, seeing if they have a packaging available, and or for sure, always questions like that packaging that they're offering to you. Believe me, there's a margin on top. They don't do anything for free. Many Chinese still, they put a lot of effort in terms of selling and helping. They make a few cents probably on the packaging or so. So sometimes, let it be. Always be ethically correct, please. Because imagine they're also a company, they may be a family business. They have the same dreams as you. They want to build up a business. They want to make profit. They want to bring a better life to their family or build their big dream of becoming a multi-billionaire. So always give them, of course, a chance. Don't see them ever as slaves, or they have to do nothing for you. If they don't want to, they don't need you. But now when it comes to, let's say you produce cosmetics or food supplements or kitchen household bathroom stuff, kids' toys, animal pet foods, and so on, and there will always be, of course, a packaging. Ask, for example, or not ask, just say, hey, I'm my own packaging producer. It's cheaper. Please accept. We will deliver the packaging on our own to you. Can we bring that? What adjustments can we do in the packaging? Oh, another thing, of course, to always ask when you have your producers, whether they're a real producer or a trading company. There's so many easy things that you can do in the background to check, like, the business registration. Is it a trading company? If they produce anything from baby toys to wooden products to food supplements and electronics, unlikely that this is one factory. It's probably a trading company. Kick them out. We don't need any trading.
Okay, Sebastian, let me ask you a question. You seem to have a strong opinion on this. What is the function of a trading company? What do they actually do in the ecosystem? Are they an unnecessary middleman, or are they a function, something that should exist in the ecosystem?
I mean, for sure, they should exist as well. They are, for once, helping, of course, the factories to sell more because they say, hey, this is a good product. I push them out as well. On the other hand, I always say it's like they're moving boxes. They're receiving big product shipments, put it in smaller one and ship them out. They may also be the importer of record. They may be the one who is an importer, for example, into the EU or into the US, and they will make all the taxation and the compliance for the product. Who's the first in traffic bringer? I don't know if that's the right word. The first in German, it would be translated like this. The one who brings it first into an economic region has to be responsible for that.
They're, well, like you said, the importer of record. They're the first one that has the liability for it. And the reason they would do that is because, let's say they work with a factory in China that maybe doesn't have they have the manufacturing expertise, but they lack the compliance expertise, maybe the German, English language expertise, the tax knowledge. And so this company works to facilitate their products being out on the market.
Why do I say they only kind of move boxes? Because try to get a trading company to do changes on the product. That would require them to talk with a producer to negotiate changes, produce a new product. So they're kind of, like a sales rep for the producing companies. They may have, because they buy a lot of those products, they sometimes may even have better purchasing prices. You see this at Apple, for example. When you have a distributor, you may get at a distributor cheaper prices than you would get from Apple directly as a retail price. Why? Because they buy bulk, and they understood it's like, okay, so if Apple sells that to another retail company, this is the price, but I want to win this guy, so I'll reduce the purchasing cost a little bit, make less margin, but I'm going to sell because I'm going to be cheaper than Apple itself. So there's all the things, and yes, you definitely need this because not everybody has the patience or the need or the want of really going to the source. But the ones who want to build a brand and want to go to the source and get the cheapest prices and all the changes possible, that maybe if you're just a trader of wholesale goods or so, that may be the better way of working with distributors, for example.
So they have their place. It's just that you need to understand what role they play in the ecosystem and if it's appropriate for you at your level and your kind of size of business. And it sounds like you might want to make that relationship more direct later down the line, potentially.
I mean, our clients always want, of course, the cheapest possible prices for the needed quality. And this is where we say no trading company in between, especially, of course, if you want adjustments for your products. If you say you don't want to take care of product compliance and you want to find a trading company inside Europe, the Europe economic region, or inside the Americas, free trade zones, etc., then why not go to them?
Okay. That really sheds some light on it. I think this is one of the subjects, Sebastian, we've had on the show that I know the least about. So I'm getting a masterclass from you at this moment. Okay. Next question we got here. So could you share some key strategies for reducing product costs without compromising quality? We've talked a lot about cost already, right? But let's dive into that a bit more, especially for businesses that are just looking to increase their overall profit margins.
I mean, a very general thing, whether it's a new product or it's one of your bestseller products that already sells 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 times a year or more, is literally get more quotations. Do the work. If you want to get better prices, you need to have more offers with, of course, good quality. Don't only trust on good quality that they tell you, check the quality. That's the second thing. So do quality controls, of course, in person there locally in the factories. we are 100% remote. We sit where all the factories are. That's why we go in there and do the quality control. But also, and don't only do them for samples. Give you an example. A client, before he came to us, he came with almost tears in his eyes. He said, "Hey, look, I've done a mistake. I went to China. I looked at some pouches, textile. I got 3 pouches as a sample. Looked at them and said, yeah, number 2, whatever is great. Started production, went through shipping, prepared everything. Boom, came over, imported through the heavy regulations, of course, getting it into Germany with all the bureaucracy, taxes, documentations, and everything. Gets it into his warehouse, opens the container just to find out that the mass production does not look like sample 2. This company, and to me is the most likely explanation. Why could they not produce the product that they had shown as a sample? Because they bought the samples from another company, showed we can do that, and in the
Wow.
end they tried to copy and build it afterwards. It looked different. They
Yikes.
didn't.
So, and then
So
that's after huge amounts of money invested, time, energy, effort. That must be really demoralizing. So, what's the workaround for that? I mean, I think I learned this from you last time I saw you at a conference, actually, is that you want to have someone who is going to be in the factory in person, who is native, who can do a product inspection, and they're not going to look at, oh, here's the best example we have. They're going to take one off the line. They're going to look at it, in person there, and they're going to give it a full inspection and say, does this meet the criteria? Here's a bunch of detailed photos and pictures or whatever, right?
yeah.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he lost $100,000. He said it was like $100,000 for the oven. Textile, you just could not really sell those pouches anymore. So what you do is, of course, I mean, first you get the samples, you look at the samples, of course, and you do background checks about the factory as well. See, of course, are they a real factory? Where is it located? How open and easy is the communication? How willing are they to do changes? How flexible are they? How easy and how sympathetic, of course, are they? Check the factory. Here's maybe a small hack or a small hint when you want to find out whether it is a factory. When you're in contact with them and you ask them, it's like, hey, so how's it going? A short question. Are you today in the factory or in the office? Oh, I'm in the factory. Okay, cool. Nice. So not in the office. No, I'm in the factory. All right. Do me the favor. Turn on your Weixin camera right now. I would like to see the factory. I want to see the production line. Show me around a little bit. I would like to see it. And then you'll see very quickly whether he's in the office and there's a trading company or really in the factory. So make sure, those small tricks, surprise them with those things. But then on the next step is as well, when you go into mass production, for example, by the way, another thing for an earlier question to ask your suppliers, which a lot of people don't do, is not only, of course, about the MOQs, is not only about the prices, but your payment terms. What if you can achieve like not 50-50, but let's say 20-80 or 30-70, or even a 20-30-50? 20% down payment with production start, 30% after, for example, production has been finished before shipping, and the other 50% like 60 or 90 days after receiving the goods. You will not get this in the very first go, but you can achieve this also with Chinese, even over this long distance, by having established a good relationship.
So you demonstrate a track record, then you can start to ask for more favorable payment terms. Because as always, with e-commerce, you want to push those out as far as you can. A good example, I think, is I heard this on a podcast recently. It was about Costco. Costco has a relationship with some suppliers they're so reliable that they actually end up paying for the products after they've already sold them in some cases, because they have such incredible terms on things that which is we would all love that, right? But I think that you can't start there. You have to have a track record and demonstrate your ability to execute. The Chinese companies, they all understand the e-commerce game now. They know what we're doing. They know what's happening.
To make sure that the quality, of course, fits is, I mean, when you make a down payment, of course, do this if that is what they need for production. Of course, also that gives you somewhat of a hint what their costs usually are, right? Because with this, they want to cover the costs for material and labor. And at the same time, then before you make the second payment or even balance final payment, go in there and check the quality. And when you go to the factories or you hire, for example, I mean, us or another sourcing company or quality inspection company, you have them go in there and give them very clear instructions. I mean, some quality, again, I never want to shoot against anybody, but one of the ways when you go to the factories and you have your very clear expectations of what you want to test is they would usually invite you, of course, into pick you up maybe with their BMW 7 limousine, or by now, not really German cars anymore. They'll pick you up with the luxurious Chinese cars, because they have developed a lot further than us German car builder or automotive producers. that you get to the factory and they welcome you and show you around, and then there are 3 boxes on the table, and you say, it's like, thanks, put them away. I want this one, that one, and this one over there. You decide which ones to check. Your sourcing company, your quality insurance, quality inspection company tells which ones to check. Don't do a remote quality control check where they send you the samples. Don't do a check where they put samples in front of you. Why? Because they'll have looked through it and made sure that those are good examples.
Of course,
Yeah.
naturally, yeah.
And then you dig in and then you say, it's like, okay, if my limit is 5% or 10% of a bad production and you are acceptance level or whatever AQL levels you wanna have, that you then say, all right, we checked about like whatever 20 units, but then we say, not so sure, go dig in deeper. Go to 10% of the products. In worst case, go into 100% of product checks. That of course takes some time, but this ensures the quality, of course, of the products. And it's not so expensive, to be honest.
Sebastian, could you define something for me? I know what MOQ is, but you just said another term, AQL. What is AQL?
The acceptance quality levels of industry standards of how much do you want to have as a tolerate as bad quality or tolerate of like broken products, etc., etc.
Yeah, so a lot more to consider there. That's really great. Another question. We have several more, but we talk about e-commerce generally speaking. Of course, this show and our focus is mostly on Amazon. And one of the most important things about Amazon is FBA and FBA fees. So how can businesses work towards minimizing or managing FBA fees somewhere earlier on in their supply chain? And is there a way to be strategic with your sourcing that's going to help minimize FBA fees? Obviously, this is a big conversation after the ones that have changed in quarter 1 and quarter 2 of this year.
That's a lovely, lovely, lovely point. I've just had this in 2-3 other presentations or invitations shared about this. I mean, one of the big things, of course, for you is in general, the shipping from production facility to your home country into your storages or into FBA warehouses. That's one cost. But now if you look at Amazon and you just Google FBA rate card, you see exactly for your country, what are the levels of weight and dimensions for which FBA category. Then you look at your products and say, am I close to a level? Could I optimize like getting it down a little bit lower? So we actually do that a lot for some of the clients who have products already. We look at the size of the packaging, we know the country, and we say, hey, how about reduce this bill by like whatever, a half an inch or a centimeter in order to get to the lowest FBA rate. Now, I have an example here of my own products. This is a small, okay, it's a blue envelope, it's not white, but by the way, that's something sometimes I send out to clients to, get an eye catcher in their mailbox. I always design my small products to actually fit perfectly into a small envelope, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the ways of, for example, if I do FBM myself, to know that this thing is current robbery prices by German Post are, but I think it's like a euro, a dollar or so for shipping this. If I go on the next larger level, it would be 160. That would be 60% more expensive. I was like, let's try to reduce it. Now, here comes one thing. You can reduce it to the larger one, for example, if you're lucky from getting envelopes into smaller envelopes, of course, this would be massive cost reduction in terms of packaging, in terms of international shipping, in terms of FBA fees. And the FBA fees, besides reimbursement, besides another great point to really optimize and get your margin, next to sourcing, is PPC. You guys, AMZ Pathfinder, you will help optimize PPC, massive drainage costs. I look at my own products and it's like, how many tens of thousands of dollars am I burning on bad quality keywords? The ones that kill the margin, of course, or some of the products actually that are not really profitable anymore, but they are cross-financed by the profitable products. Kill them maybe even. What I wanted to show is that I guess you guys, of course, you agree that this is a small product. And I had a box like this. I actually made also camera covers for smartphones or for laptops, and they had about this size. Now, having a small box with 250 units in there, this size, that's fantastic for air shipping. I don't care, to be honest, about air shipping cost. Yes, this is why I also order quite late. But now imagine that. We took this size and we put it down to this. It's 1.5 grams. So I think this is like a 1/25th of an ounce or a 1/20th of an ounce or so. And reduced the packaging by quite a large size. I have now a box like this, 3,200 units in one small box. I reduced the storage cost, the international shipping cost from 12 boxes down to 1. And that's insane, all the possibilities you can do. Now, on the other hand, if you have a product like this and you see, for example, you have a lot of unused space over here. And I said, you know what, actually, this is 1 unit and we optimized it now to even smaller sizes. It still could be smaller.
Right.
There's now 4 units in there, for example. And all of that even increases the FBA fees. Now, even the likelihood when you send into Amazon warehouses, you know how the lasers are, and constantly it's wrong in terms of like wrong measurements, or you have a plastic foil, so the lasers make your product like 15 times as large as it really is. Great solution, by the way, Getida. We can also share a $1,000 discount code, where Getida can also help, making, for example, FBA remeasurements automatically and telling the warehouses, hey guys, that's the wrong size. Please correct this and get me back all my wrong FBA fees. That's another, like a third potential way of massively reducing your lost money or improving your profit. And PPC is one of my personal profit killers, because I don't, or used to, not solidly look into this and kill what is not profitable.
And thanks for the shout out, Sebastian. Appreciate it. but in general, like what you just showed off there, and by the way, maybe that's the first time we've had a live demonstration on this podcast of someone showing off physical products and saying, look, this is the size. So thank you for that. But it almost strikes me as like, this is the version we would put for retail, and this is the version we would do for e-commerce and Amazon. And the packaging for those two things can be totally different. One thing that I've tried to highlight to a lot of our clients is SIPP, ships in product packaging, and this whole initiative by Amazon, because wherever possible, if you can shave off 15, 20, 30 cents USD or euro per unit at scale, yeah, this just makes such a big difference. And you look at the rate card, like you said, and you say, how can we manage to get it and squeeze it just under that line? And then if Amazon gets it wrong, we'll take steps to make sure that they open their eyes and they see that, no, we did the measurements, we weighed it, we did the dimensions, we know for a fact that this is under this threshold. And that all comes from the sourcing and packaging side, doesn't it? So you need to think about that stuff early on.
One of the things I would still also suggest, I mean, for sure, it may make sense for online commerce to have maybe smaller product sizes or packaging sizes for big box retail, different ones. But I target, I'm not selling only on Amazon, I'm selling on web shop as well. And in my first brand, we have in more than like 1,000 big box retail stores throughout Germany. And that is, of course, big fun then, maybe even better profit than on Amazon. I made a bit more money over big box retail rather than over Amazon. But I directly target, to make it like ready for retail as well. I'm not really a big fan of later redesigning it again, because if it once looks good, it can also be, again, a small size. If this hangs somewhere at the cashier, maybe a little bit of a larger note on there, maybe with a backdrop of a magnetic board or so, putting it onto the metal sheets to say, what is this product about? Then you directly have the product ready for retail. And imagine your clients on Amazon, they're receiving like a professional packaging. They was like, that could go into retail. Well, actually it is, but that could go into retail. And it's like, that looks like a very professional product instead of receiving, the white box.
Yeah, because my theory on this is that when you're selling on Amazon, you have the opportunity to hit the consumer with videos and a lineup of different photos that you can do, a lot of things
QR codes
with.
on the packaging.
Yeah, you can do many things on an Amazon listing. But when someone sees it in retail, the only space that you really have to market to them is the physical footprint of that product.
Yep.
So the example that you gave with your card there is like, yeah, this hangs on the thing near the cash register. Well, it had a lot of attractive writing in German that said like, here's the benefits and here's the features, and it stands out a bit. But the smaller packaging, I worry it wouldn't take up as much physical space, and so people wouldn't be as clued into what it's about. But I guess this is something you have to experiment with as a brand, right? And figure out which one works for you.
One suggestion directly is, imagine, like the 7 images or the main images and the 7 gallery images you have on Amazon. This is your one chance. That thing, that's why, it wasn't very successful, or it was successful, but I can make it better in the future ones because the wording is wrong. People don't understand what this is. This hangs down the wall. RFID, NFC, blocker card. I mean, I'm an electrical engineer. To me, this is logic what this is. To the common buyer, they look at this and like, what the heck is RFID and NFC? And I don't understand. This must mean is like a safety card for your wallet. Bam! People must, they walk into the store, they look at left and right, and if that thing doesn't catch their attention and they understand in 2 seconds what the product is, lost. So this may also be, of course, a good exercise for optimizing your packaging. Now, on the other hand, imagine the buyer receives this thing and he gives it as a present. and he gives it as a present. If somebody gives that thing to whatever to his mother, and they say it's like RFID NFC blocker card, thank you, my son, but what is that? Right? So think of like putting it out there. Now imagine you will start selling on your online shop, on Shopify and or into retail. Get that thing out there and get people to speak about it. With a great packaging, even with a great design, even easier to sell.
And one last question on packaging, because we spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's something I didn't anticipate being as vast and as interesting as it is. Do you find the majority of the clients you guys work with do packaging from the same factories where they source, or do
No.
they bring in external packaging?
I mean, the smartest thing is, to look for packaging on your own. We've saved so many millions of dollars in packaging for clients. For the simple thing is that, the producers, if you have a factory, they don't have printing machines. They usually don't have carton box production machinery. They ordered this from somebody else anyhow. There's always people. I mean, when we've been to the last sourcing trip in China together with Amy Buies of Amazing at Home, we went to the Chinese factories and also the packaging factories and looked at what this looks like. No producer has printing machines worth millions of dollars or millions of yuan standing around just to produce packaging. They buy it from somewhere else as well. And here comes the same thing again. Like if a trading company, would they really be interested in dealing with all the details and the changes and, oh, please adjust the FNSKU sticker on the back. I put the wrong one in there. There's like, guys, can you deal with them directly? I don't want to do this stuff. This is not my business. I don't earn business on it. So I don't earn money on it. So best, of course, and this is the same thing, especially when it becomes bigger quantities, source packaging suppliers and compare those prices. There's so much money to save, even if it's just a few cents or so. That makes a difference by larger quantities, of course. Inserts, same thing. If you put inserts cards in there, what if you save like 2 cents on an insert card? Imagine, I mean, for some of them, we do this with 50,000 units, 3, 4, 5 cents saved. That's a lot just on insert cards. Okay, 3, 4, 5 cents is maybe, sorry to say, too large unless it's special ones. But imagine 1 or 2 cents being saved on an insert card.
Well, it all adds up at the end of the day, doesn't it? And then if you scale it, it gets more and more, and it's a one-time decision that you can go and revisit. Okay, that sheds a lot of light on it, though, Sebastian. Thank you. That's really helpful. So another question I got, we got time for 1 or 2 more here, I think. Product sourcing to me seems like a very relationship-based business. And so the players in the space, like you guys, you have very specific niche knowledge. And a lot of that is not, let's call it like legible or easily understandable by external parties that don't have experience. So because of this, I assume that the kind of disruption we're seeing with AI in our industry with Amazon, which is happening in all these different categories, is not happening so much in the product sourcing field. Can you confirm or deny on that? Am I wrong about this? How is AI changing things?
It's not easy to grasp, for example, like the product details, or what's not easy to grasp?
Well, you can't go to ChatGPT and just say, find me 10 suppliers in China that have X product at X dimension for X cost, right? That's not possible.
You can find some of them for sure, but I mean, the real deeper research is, and I mean, many times either you find them on trade shows, or you find web pages that don't even I'm sorry, not web pages that don't exist, suppliers who don't have a web page or a completely outdated web page. It's so much about communication for sure. And no doubt there is for sure AI coming in there as well, maybe making some useful help as well. See Alibaba, for example, they also use AI in order to find better and faster suppliers. But at the same time, it's still also the research of the suppliers is not the main task. It's the whole communication. It's the whole exercise of building one's trust. Again, selling, not buying in the beginning, building a cooperation, getting them to answer, negotiating the prices and the changes. AI will definitely help building up a list. But a list itself on potential producers is useless if you don't know if they can do it, what their prices are, how flexible they are, and so on. So that is the major part of our work, is not building the lists. I mean, I usually tell people, if you want to have a list, I mean, just go Google, just build them up on your own. That's not a problem. The real work needs to be done then evaluating those, communicating. And again, it's like, I mean, you don't want to see our online phone bills. I was shocked myself how many thousands of hours our team has been on the phone, and we may need to find also do some sourcing for additional softwares to get cheaper phone bills. It's sure, AI will help, but again, business is still done between humans, and all the fine changes and details and understanding what you want on your product, it's human work.
Right. That's the part that can't be replicated by LLMs or outsourced necessarily. This is the communication part. It might help you with some translation here and there, perhaps, but
Oh, for
nothing.
sure.
Yeah, but nothing.
Writing
Nothing too much
instructions,
past that.
what kind of USPs you want to have, for example.
Mhm.
I might give usually like a long presentation as well. How can you use AI to completely come up with a product idea? How to research the competitors, how to get all the changes in the USPs, how to analyze the weak points of the competitors. Like one of the examples I've done is like pedigree, like dog food, and looking
Yeah.
into and digging deeper in there. So what are the cheap materials or cheap ingredients they put in there? Because the second brand that we have is the skincare, and we want to revolutionize the market in terms of doing everything different compared to what the big players are, who have a margin of 20 to 50%, 20 to 50 times of the production cost. And for all of those, for writing summaries for your sourcing company or producing company, writing summaries for your photographers and graphic developers, writing summaries, I don't know, maybe even for AMZ Pathfinder to say what are the main difficulties. Well, to find keywords, discovery keywords, and maybe find conversion keywords, which you maybe don't come up with. But
Yeah.
again, like the same work, there's like even a PPC, there's also always a human touch. Like this keyword may not be very profitable, but is it relevant to me? Do I, as a human, still want to keep it in there because it's so related to the product? Even if it's not profitable, is it for me something where I say, you know what, leave it in there. I'm happy to make a little bit loss on the keyword, but it's super important to have this main keyword as a driver in PPC.
Right. There might be certain times a year to do that. There might be certain contexts where you have different levels of stock that you might want to do that, or maybe a competitor is
Yeah.
doing something.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of fringe scenarios that an LLM can't take into account. But it's good to hear that all of us still have a job going forward, and that we haven't been replaced by AI just yet. Okay, cool. Anything that I haven't asked you, Sebastian, you'd like to bring up and highlight? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground here today, but is there anything that I've missed?
I mean, one of the, maybe just as a simple hint or hack for what to really focus on, especially the ones who have an established brand already, do consider, look at your bestsellers and ask yourself, do I know 80, 90% of the market of potential producers? Am I 100% sure that I get the best prices? Or would it be worth looking into there? What would it mean if I save 10 cents, 20 cents, 50 cents, a dollar, two, or five, depending on how expensive your product is in production? What would that mean over the year? Would it be worth looking into that, and then at least half of that money giving to brand and the AMZ Pathfinder to optimize even sales, and keep the other 50% of the savings for myself, my family, and some nice vacation or lots of dinners with my wife together to make her happy, or husband? Think about resourcing. Means optimizing the purchasing cost of your current bestsellers. Maybe a small hint and hack how you could do this for once on your own. I mean, the very basic is usually when I have my hack presentations, I think this is hack number 11 on the first hack slide. This one says, we call it the undercover hack. So give you an example, I don't have it right now here, but one of the first brand also has wallets. We started with slim wallets back then. By the way, don't ever make the same mistake as I did. In the beginning, I started creating like 7 different slim wallets, different designs, own designs and everything. Which client needs 7 wallets? Nobody. They need one, they need additional products. So maybe sell umbrella, sell something else, pouches and so on that he would need, but maybe not necessarily 7 different wallets and hope for the big breakthrough. That was 2014, 15 when I got started. Where was I? The undercover hack.
Yes.
Now, originally,
the names got me already. I'm already excited.
the original thing was, I think it started at like $5 something, then $4.90, $4.20. I think we ended up somewhere then at $3.90 over the years per unit in purchasing. And I always felt like, it's a rubber band, a little bit of leather. It's not so, it's actually a bit expensive. But again, then I thought, it's like, come up with the undercover hack. And we just started the undercover hack is you have your buddies or somebody else asking. You could go into that same supplier and ask, and as a new customer, hey, I want to get like this brand's brand. That's I see as a competitor. I would like to have that same wallet. What is your prices? And if they offer you $3.90 into a new client $2.20, and that's the truth, then you can go to your client, to your producer then, and saying, guys, you know what? So for new clients, you offer $2.20, but for me, you offer $3.90 for the same product. Oh, no, 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 cannot. Oh, really? I have written proof over here. So, oh, yeah, 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 that happened just like last week. We reduced. Aha, right, sure. I'm buying for the last 2 years at 390 at that same cost. I want, and then you start negotiating with them, of course, as well. I want you to give me the reduction of the price for $2.20 to 390 on all of the units that I purchased in the last 2 years. Oh, no, no, this happened only like last week. No, of course it did not. Stop cheating at me. All right, if you don't want to negotiate, then I have an offer here for you. Half. I could have been more aware in the last 2 years. For that last 1 year, either get money back and, or which you most likely will, of course, never do, that you say for the difference of the value, next production, I want those units more. If not, well, I'll go to other suppliers. So resourcing, rethinking, you may have products that sell well, but don't leave them alone for years. Go in frequently. It may be the next order. Like I've been lucky enough. So there was a crazy German guy who is a theater composer or whatever you call it, a theater play composer. And he made a theater play in Germany around Amazon. And he found me there and casted me and I was in there. But while I was in Berlin with this thing, I sat in the morning in the hotel and just asked our teams like, hey ladies, can you reorder the product, this and that, and go in and just try to negotiate prices again. Same amount of orders, same quantity, and they just within 3 mornings on average for packaging for the product. And the second product, they reduced on average by 14.8%. And I said, ladies, I couldn't be more proud of you. All we did is ask, negotiate again, and we save 14.8% in purchasing.
That's huge.
That's $100,000.
That's such a huge leverage point. Yeah, because that that might seem like, oh, okay, 14.8, but 14.8. If we reduce an A cost by 14.8 in advertising, we're quite happy. If we reduce a bid by that much, if we boost sales by that much, we're happy. So yeah, reducing what we would call a fixed cost, which actually is not fixed in reality, is incredible.
I mean, imagine, whatever, if you have let's say, for example, you're $1 million seller. Let me just try to make something up. If you have 20 or 30%, let's say 25 purchasing costs, let's say you spend $250,000, or let's make it easier, like 20% purchasing cost. Let's say you spend $200,000 and maybe, let's say you save 10%, that would be $20,000 in savings. So if you now are $1 million seller and maybe as it is probably reasonable today, also 10% would be your profit. I mean, we know that many larger sellers have like 1-digit profitability. The few still have 20% profitability on Amazon. If you just assume it's 10%, you would make 100,000 profit, of which you also need to reorder products. And you just made 20,000 additional ones by saving 10% on your $200,000 annual order.
Right.
All of a sudden, you have $120,000 profit. That's 20% profit increase by just reducing your purchasing cost by 10%. Another good thing, Brand, if I may, then, like I love the example from Getida. I calculated this through with Jim Mann. If I again later I'm happy to share like a $1,000 discount code for Getida, and we don't get any affiliate fees from anybody, or at least we tell them, it's like, guys, you know what? Let's get better off. I also have a $2,000 discount code, but I'm only very selectively allowed to give this one out to larger sellers. But look at, for example, I mean, and what maybe you can add another example, Brand, in the end for PPC. But now if Getida, for example, says they get like 1 to 3% or so of annual revenue back. Now, 1 to 3% of a $1 million seller, for the ones who don't know what Getida is, Amazon loses products, damages products, whatever other reasons there are, so your products are not sellable anymore. Amazon doesn't tell you about this. Getida has a software, automatically gets the reimbursements from Amazon. So if they rediscover 1 to 3% out of $1 million seller, that's $10,000 to $30,000 profit. Sorry, $10,000 to $30,000 that you get back. If you again have 10% profitability on 100,000, now you get 110 to 130,000. You increase your profit by 10 to 30%. Now you come in with us, for example, as well, or with a sourcing company, and please feel free to go out to anybody out there as well. I do believe any sourcing company out there who exists for a longer time has a reason to exist. I don't necessarily have the competition thinking the market is so huge. So if there's another 20% all of a sudden profit increase, so let's look what we did. In the least point, let's say we increased 10% by Getida. We increased 20% or maybe also only 10% by resourcing. That's 20% profitability increase from 100 to 120. Or if I get the calculation right, it was 120 and they another maximum 30. So it would be 150,000. That would be a 50% profit increase. And now, Brand, you kick in. Please tell me, I hope I don't challenge you too much, but what did you see in your past when you optimize PPC cost? What profit increase could you do? Could you get another 10%, 20?
Yeah, usually what it looks like when we join an account is we'll reduce the spend at first and make a lot of cuts and changes, but
Mhm.
then we'll start to ramp it back up. And that's the part where, we've basically put the account on a diet, but then we're feeding it better food as we reintroduce
Yeah.
a new diet, so to speak. And yeah, typically we'll see an ACOS drop after that first 2-3 month period where we've done the optimizations and then we're putting the fire back on. And we're able to see an ACOS drop and therefore profitability increase. The percentage exactly, it depends on the marketplace. It depends on the state of the account before we get
Right.
to it too. A lot of accounts we get to these days have been managed by other agencies or have been done in-house by someone. So most of them are pretty good actually. But for accounts where the company owner has managed it or they've brought in someone who, let's say, is on a little bit cheaper side for PPC management, those accounts are usually a disaster. We can make big changes in those really quickly.
I mean, let's assume. I mean, could we strengthen a calculation? So let's see. What would be a typical ACOS that you quite often see in the beginning?
Probably like the mid 30s to low 40s would be pretty normal. So let's say an account at scale, they're like, oh, this low 40s, mid high 30s and low 40s is like too high for us. We want to get it down closer to 25% or mid
Right.
20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at this. Let's just assume for easy calculation, 30% is the ACOS, and also to be pessimistic from our side, because that may be better, of course, than already having 40%. But let's say 30% ACOS. If we just split it evenly, organic versus paid traffic, TACOS would then be 15%. So let's say 15% of $1 million revenue is $150,000 in spending for PPC. Now you reduce this to how much? Let's say we get it down to 20%, right?
Yeah, sure. 20
Okay.
would be very comfortable at a
So
good time of year.
TACOS would be 10% then, 50-50 organic versus paid. Now we had 10% of $1 million is now $100,000 spending in PPC versus 150,000. So that's a difference of $50,000. And remember, what was our original profit? $100,000. 50% profit on top. Now you may now again look at Gatita, another 10 to 30%. Resourcing, I mean, the very base of your business, the product, resourcing it there, getting it cheaper prices. It may, what did I say? 20%? I think that was
I think you said 10 on top of the 10 from the other one. I'm starting to get a little bit lost in the percentages, to be honest, but I think the point has been made that really this lever is a big one to pull. And it's one of these classic like 80-20s. And I think it's overlooked by a lot of people.
Yes.
I would actually like to put the question to a lot of our clients. When's the last time you had a serious conversation or did some serious negotiations with your suppliers? I wonder how many of them would say, oh, it's been 8 months, it's been 12 months, it's been 2 years. That's probably too long, right? They should probably be revisiting that conversation more frequently.
May I summarize those 4 things?
Sure.
Profit increasement by product sourcing optimization. PPC is a massive money spender, huge potential of optimizing profit. Reimbursements is another one. We've also seen huge FBA fees. Look at, again, how much can you save by getting into the next smaller category. Other things you can do, kill negative or bad keywords. And maybe number 6, kill unprofitable products. I think with this, you can probably 50 to 100% increase your profitability. Maybe only 20%. Is it worth the time? I guess it would be. Without selling a single unit more. Then you have the profit to give it to you and to increase the positive feedback loop. I like how this developed here into a profit increase or profit improvement.
A bit of a masterclass examination of profit change. Well, these things are all interrelated. As we talked about before we even hit record, it's like the reason that we are caring so much about product detail page and how it looks is because even a 0.5 percentage point increase on your PPC conversion rate is going to help the rest of your business and what we do as an agency. So neither here nor there, but they're all related. So Sebastian, to kind of close it out here, tell us a little bit more about Signify, like where we can find you. Obviously, we know you guys are experts at product sourcing and that, but where can we find you? How should we get in touch if we're interested? And what's exciting to you these days that's got you excited for the rest of Q3 and Q4 here in 2024?
First of all, of course, I hope I didn't direct this or lead this conversation into a direction you didn't want to, but I hope this gives, of course, lots of benefit, of course, for everyone out there. I mean, very simple, signify.net, a Z in the beginning, a Y in the end, signify.net. There's a book a call, a button, just schedule a call and we can hop on a call and see and explore the possibilities where to potentially find your producers in which country, of course, China and or others, or if there's potential, of course, to optimize your purchasing cost. So that would be the most lovely thing I think you could do. What gets me excited, I mean, is of course that people now start thinking more and more about profit, think about optimizing the purchasing cost.
Mhm.
I mean, think about in general optimizing the business and growing also outside of Amazon into Shopify and the big box retail and so on and so on. Those are actually also other businesses of mine where I help getting into the media and getting into big box retail worldwide. But this on the side, I mean, it's nice to see, even though there's a lot of competition out there, even though there's a lot of Chinese sellers out there underbidding, but I do see that the governments are focusing more on responsibility, on the certifications, on compliance of products, and that we're now not only talking about, revenue, but start focusing on, well, profit. And with
Right.
your help and with others, to help sellers in general get more out of the business. It is work, that's homework, but I mean, we do work to make money, right? And now imagine we optimize all of those together, and then you bring in new products.
Sure.
Your
That's why the
competition will be
ecosystem
asleep.
exists. The ecosystem of service
Yes.
providers that we consider ourselves, both a part of. Yeah, we're here to be that assist. We're here to be that person they can lean on, that resource they can lean on. So I agree. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. You gave us like a giant brain explosion of everything going on with sourcing. I really appreciate it, man. I can't wait to see you at another show in the near future sometime.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you so much, Brand.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sebastian.